Welcome back in, everybody, to Sports and Money. It is a privilege to have you all on board tonight. We are working on the Olympics tonight, specifically one team from the Olympics. We'll jump into that in just a second, but thank you all for being back with us tonight. Hats off to all the Olympians. We just finished the Paris Olympics, and I enjoyed it. I don't always get to watch the Olympics, but I really enjoyed it. Got to watch a ton of it with my family. We watched all kinds of things, and hats off to all those folks who did so much work. And the behind the scenes people too. It takes a lot to put that on. So for 3 weeks, whatever it was, we really enjoyed it. And all the Olympians, I'm sure, have gone home by now, back to their normal lives, whatever normal life is for them. And then some of them will have a shot at it again in 4 years in Los Angeles, and some of them will never be back. But hats off to them for putting on a great show for us this year. I really enjoyed it. Tonight we're taking a look at one of the women's beach volleyball teams from Italy specifically. One of the many sports that we watched this year was the beach volleyball right there into the Eiffel Tower. It was a really cool setting that they were able to get that setting right into the Eiffel Tower. In fact, watching the sunset sometimes was just cool. But having those competitions as the sun set and then even at night was a lot of fun. This is one team that stood out to me, though, because, and I'm going to get into it here in just a second, but because of one of the my perceived talent deficits here that was on this team, but we're going to get into that. But the two players on this team are Valentina Gottardi. She's right here. They're both from Italy. And then the other one, Marta Menegatti. Menegotti's been around for a while. I think this is her third Olympics out of the past 4 Olympics. If I remember right, she played in the 12 and the 16 Olympics. And then again here in the 24 Olympics. So she's been a tremendous player for a very long time. But this particular team, Gottardi and Menegatti, they lost to Chang and Hughes from the United States in the round of 16. We're actually going to look at a little bit of that, the matchup, the strategy on that in a second. So they had a good showing. For them to finish in the final round of 16, they weren't necessarily expected. This Italian team wasn't necessarily expected to be a medal favorite in the first place. But when I watched Gottardi, and she's only 21, she's about 6 feet, 6'1", depending on whose website you like to pay attention to, probably 6'1". She's only 21 years old. Watching her this year, she was already good enough by herself to have been part of a medal-winning team. Now, probably not beating the Brazilians, because the Brazilians were just kind of light years ahead of most teams that they were playing. Canada gave them a run, and I think one other team gave them a small kind of half a scare. But still, watching Gottardi this year, she was tremendous. And just at the age of 21, if she wants to keep it up, and sometimes people don't. Sometimes life happens and, there are other things calling, and that's fine. But if she wants to keep it up, and obviously she's going to keep playing on tour, but if she wants to keep pushing this Olympic thing in 4 years, there's no reason that at the age of 25 she couldn't be a really serious medal contender at the Los Angeles Olympics. And then again in 2032, she would still be only 29 years old. And then again, unbelievably, at the 36 Olympics, if I'm adding all that up right, she would be at the age of, I think, 33. And we watched several ladies this year, Menegatti being one of them, who were able to compete at the ages of 32, 33 at a really high level. So Gottardi could be a part of this Olympic scene for as long as she wants to be. The talent is there. It's just a matter of her continuing to want to do that and put in that kind of, work, time, and sacrifice. Because, boy, these Olympians really put out a lot of that, a lot of work. So, but anyway, Gottardi, sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name, 21 years old, only, that's all she is so far. She was good enough. Her partner, unfortunately, Marta Menegatti, was not good enough. And we're going to dive into why in just a minute. And I don't mean to slam Menegatti. This may have been her last Olympics. All right, at the age of 33, next time she'll be 37. I don't know if she'll be able to get on the next one. But you could see that the talent level, the talent disparity was there, that Gottardi was just all over the place, tremendous skill set, athletic, good at the net. I'm going to get into her attributes here in a second as well. And Menegatti really struggled. You could see her struggles, and how much of that is just her losing a step versus what she was 4 years ago, 8 years ago. I don't know. But she really struggled, and because of that, this team never really had a chance to medal. They just weren't. Now, they had a fierce battle against Chang and Hughes before they went out. They had a legit shot to win it. And you could see, and this is one thing I like to see. I call it the Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, killer instinct. Gottardi has that. She has that fire. You could see how much it disappointed her to lose that match. You could see how much she actually believed they could win that match. You could see how hard she was working to try to make that happen. And you could see you could see it. You could see it in her eyes that she was lit up about it. She was serious about winning, and she was serious about competing, and she was serious about actually thinking they had a chance in this. And they did. And yet ultimately they did what was going to happen at some point anyway, and they were going to lose to a more talented team. And I don't mean to slam Menegatti because, again, she's been a tremendous player for a very long time. She really has. And she's a really smart player. But the athleticism, the force, the power just wasn't there this year. It just wasn't there. And it was there from Gottardi, but it wasn't there from Menegatti. A lot of Menegatti's shots, instead of being force and power and straight line, a lot of them were unfortunately loop shots that gave the other team plenty of time. And so I'm going to scroll on over here to the match against the United States between Chang and Hughes and Gottardi and Menegatti. This is standard volleyball strategy. I'm not suggesting anything here that's unusual, all right? But standard volleyball strategy is you hit the ball when you're serving. So when the United States is serving, you hit the ball to the weaker player so that you force them to actually be the one to handle the ball the most. And you force them generally to be the one who is trying to spike or trying to finish or trying to score. That is generally what is happening. So when Hughes and Chang are serving, and Hughes is the good server on this team, they would almost always, without fail, and again, this is standard volleyball strategy, and it's intelligent, they would almost always hit the ball to Menegatti. And what that forces Menegatti to do is then to hit the ball up in the air, and she's hitting it over to Gottardi. So that forces Gottardi then to have to be the one to actually do the set. And when she does that, that means so she's going to hit the ball back over here, and that's going to bring Menegatti up. And Menegatti just does not have a strong net game. She doesn't have the height at 5'11". She also doesn't have the leaping ability. We saw some players at 5'10", 5'11" who did. We saw some players who had that, but she's not one of them at this point in her career. Just not a strong, forceful net game. She also doesn't have a strong spiking game, unfortunately. A lot of the shots, again, just lacked power, lacked any kind of power at all. So what you ended up doing here, you kind of had her shooting kind of a loop shot over. And a lot of those shots were very predictable, and it really allowed Hughes, and Hughes had a tremendous defensive game because she is a tremendous defensive player. She's a tremendous player, period, all across the board. But that really allowed Hughes to control this back area. And listen, because you have Chang here, who is one of the better net players in the world, right? I don't think she's the best, but she's one of the best net players in the world. She could line up here and take away, because of her height, she had a distinct height and length advantage over Menegatti. She could take away this shot right here, this shot down the line, and even at times, because again, it was such an athletic and length and height disadvantage here between Chang and Menegatti, she could even at times take away this shot, which forced Menegatti then to hit loop shots, because again, Menegatti doesn't have the height or the velocity on her shots. And that allowed Hughes to just completely control this back line. And if you can do that, then you are going to win the match 90, 95% of the time. And that's exactly what happened here. And again, that's standard volleyball strategy. I'm not suggesting anything different here. But that was the problem for this Italian team. And for Gottardi here to not have any more chances than she did, because she's got a lot of excellent attributes with force, power, height, net game. She's got all of that, but she was limited in her ability to use it. And so what I'm hoping to see next time at the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles, if Gottardi is still playing and playing serious and giving it the amount of work and effort that it takes to keep being this good for this long, I'm hoping to see her get a better partner to play with. And again, I'm not trying to be mean here to Menegatti. I'm not trying to slam her. You know, she's been a tremendous player, and you don't make 3 Olympics without it. She is a highly decorated player to have been able to do that. All right. So hats off to Menegatti. But a lot of these matchups are won in the Olympics in volleyball. They are won long before the matchup itself ever takes place. If you have a team here who's got one player that is distinctly less talented than the other, then the opponent is going to continue to just pick on that matchup and exploit that. And that's true in every sport in the world. That's true in basketball, football, handball, you name it. That's what those teams are going to try to do. They're going to try to exploit. And so you really can't have a weak link on a 2-person team. When you've got 11-man football or 5-man basketball or whatever, when you've got that, which those are the sports I usually cover, you can hide it sometimes. You can't hide it in 2-on-2. There's nowhere to hide. And so the teams are going to continue to pick on Menegatti, continue to pick on her, and they did. And that resulted in, even though Menegatti was playing her heart out too. And she's a smart player, and she's got a lot of savvy punch shots that she hits in certain places. She's got that, but just not enough height, not enough talent at the net, not enough force in the shots. Even when Menegatti's hitting from back here, it's just not there. Gottardi does. Gottardi has those abilities to make her good enough to where if she can get a good partner who's somewhere close to as good as she is, and I don't know who that would be. If you're watching there in Italy and you know you have an idea of who that could be, who could pair up with it, let us know in the comments. I'd love to hear it. But Menegatti just wasn't able to be good enough to keep teams from continually picking on her, and that limited what Gottardi could do. In two-person volleyball, that's just the way it is. So we're looking for her to have a better partner. I do want to talk about Gottardi's attributes here, because watching her in the Olympics, you could see that she's got a really strong game, and especially, again, at the age of only 21. What really stood out was her athleticism. She was all over the place. She was making plays on the back line. She was making plays at the net. She was making plays considerably, not just at the out-of-bounds line, but considerably out of bounds. There's one play, and if you watch the match at all, there's one play in which she is many feet out of bounds to go and save a shot. Her athleticism may have been the best that I saw. And I'm not talking about jumping ability. I'm talking about her speed and her ability to cover a tremendous amount of ground was the best that I saw out of all the players that I watched in this year's volleyball Olympics. And that includes Sarah Hughes, and that includes a couple of other very athletic players who can cover good ground. Athleticism-wise, I didn't see anybody better than her. Gottardi just had tremendous athleticism, was all over the place. The effort was there, but the speed to get there, she had the speed to get to all these different places on the court. That was what really stood out to me first. Her power is good. Now, I saw several players, both of the Brazilians. We saw both of the girls on I think the Swedish team. We saw the Canadian team. There were several ladies this year who were equal in power to Gottardi, and a couple who even had more power than what she's got. But her power is there. The force is there on the shots, the ability to hit the ball down the middle, the ability to hit the ball on the sides with force. And that's what we're talking about, is that force and that power. It really slows down at limits. And this is where I'm going to go back here to the matchup here. When you have enough force on your shots to get it with speed to the sidelines or to the back corner or even to this area here, it really forces someone like Hughes, who is, again, one of the better defensive players out there, it forces her to make decisions. Instead of just hanging around back here on the back line and having time to kind of get to most of the shots that Menegatti was hitting, when you have a player with force and power, and there's several ladies like this on the Olympic teams, Gottardi is not the only one, but it really limits. It makes her have to make decisions. She's going to have to say, no, I'm going to stay in this quadrant. I'm going to move this quadrant. I'm going to move up. All right. It forces her, but she didn't have to do that in this match. for the most part, she could just kind of float around. She had time to get to the shots because there just wasn't, excuse me, force and power on a lot of those shots that were being presented to her. So again, the athleticism is just through the roof. Maybe the best I saw. The power is right there with a cluster of other ladies who can hit it with force and power. Those are her two best attributes by far. Then you get to her network. Her network, her work around the net. That is her ability to get high, to control shots from just right there at the net. You can even see here that she's getting up high. Her ability to do that was not the best in the world. We saw probably 3 or 4 players who were better. And again, I'm not working off of statistics here. If you're working off of absolute value statistics, then she dropped down in these rankings. But again, she didn't have the opportunities in a lot of these cases. But Gottardi's work around the net. She's 6 foot, 6'1". She's got a good jumping ability. It's not elite jumping ability, but it's good jumping ability. She's up there with a better cluster of networkers, of people who can work around the net. Her work around the net is really good. It's not elite, but it's really good. It's good enough for her to be up there around the net a lot. So she did a tremendous job on that as well. Where I would like to see her try to work on her game, there's 3 areas. And the first one is really the accuracy. I noticed several times that when she was hitting the ball from a number of different positions, I noticed several times that she would kind of revert toward hitting it right here to this area. And let me see if I can pull out a different pin here. So a lot of times she would often be hitting it right in this middle area right here. And that's fine. A lot of times you're going to need to hit it in that area. But I noticed that she, and listen, these are not easy shots we're talking about, okay? These just aren't. But I noticed a lot of times she would really need to be hitting the ball down this alleyway right here or down this alleyway, and instead the shot would kind of trend back toward the middle, which was not where it needed to be on that particular play. Now, get out of this for just a second. There were also some shots in which she would actually have a chance here to hit the ball versus Chang, because she was actually, for whatever reason, she actually had a chance to do it. Maybe they were volleying, and the ball really needed to be in this area here. And this is a hard shot. I know a lot of volleyball players, even at the Olympic level, who really cannot seem to hit this shot right here. Part of that is because of height. Some of the girls just simply aren't quite tall enough to be able to get that angle and that shot. But if she can add that to her repertoire, if she can add that shot right there, which she did it a couple of times, but if she can be more consistent with it and actually get that angle, again, she's only 21, but if she can get that angle at the net, that's really going to up her game and make her even more of a medal threat, depending on which partner she can get. All right. So when I'm talking about accuracy, I'm talking about this right here, this alleyway, especially that back quadrant, and then this shot right here, this close, tight one, close to the net. She's tall enough and can jump well enough to where she ought to be able to do that. She already can. She just needs to be more consistent with it, more accurate with it. So the accuracy is something that is not bad. It's not lower than a lot of the other Olympians she was facing, but it could be better. You could see the Brazilian team, especially Duda, I think, was tremendous with her accuracy, her ability to really spotlight the ball. And there was a couple other girls as well who were just tremendous. Names not coming to me at the moment. Her digs as well. Now, she was fine with her digs, but I did notice there were a lot of times where the ball almost seemed to catch her off guard, as if the ball was up here relative to her body position, almost as if she wasn't quite in position, and it would kind of carry them off in a direction that was, worthless. It was not going to do anything for her team. And so I don't know how much of that, and again, I referred to her athleticism, and again, I have to say, she was all over the court. I mean, she was out here, she was back here, she was over here, she was here, she was almost under the net sometimes. She was tremendous. But I did notice there were times where she was working her way back and a forceful shot would come in. And again, this happens to everybody at some point. But I did notice there were several plays during the matches, not just the USA match, but the other matches as well. The matchup against Brazil, I think it was, and there was another match as well. So I'm drawing from several matches here. where the ball would come in and would catch her kind of high, and she wasn't able to handle it. She wasn't big. How much of that is because she's so rangy, almost like a shortstop in baseball, covering so much territory that you just can't be in position for everything when you're at that kind of range, right? I don't know, but it did feel like she could work on her dig some as far as just being prepared and in position. Or if she knows, hey, I'm athletic enough to get to that shot, but it's going to come in high on me, then I need to work on my ability to dig at shoulder level, right? If I'm going to get to those shots at all, which again, she can because she's got the athleticism. And then I noticed her decision making. There were times when it came to decision making, and this is tied to the accuracy. I gave her a 90 on the decisions. There were times where she just wasn't aggressive enough, I didn't think. Now, Menegatti may have an influence on that because Menegatti is very good at just tapping the ball, tap shots all over the place. Menegatti is a really smart player. And Menegatti plays, if you will, a softer game at this point in her career. She just plays a softer game, and that touch shot can be lethal. We saw several players throughout the tournament at the right time drop that touch shot. It really felt like for somebody who could put as much force and power on a shot as Gottardi can, it felt like she too often reverted to the soft shot. And that allowed the other team to just get up under it. And it felt like she needed to back off of that about half the time. Half the time, she was going with a soft shot, a touch shot, a cute shot, which can be lethal at the right time. It felt like there were really a lot of times, about half the time, she should have gotten more aggressive. And I almost wonder, and again, these relationships can be complicated. Her and Menegatti may have gotten along very well together. They may be best friends. And Menegatti may have really coached her up and mentored her up. Gottardi may owe, I don't know, Gottardi may owe half of what she knows and half of what she does to Menegatti's tutelage. I have no way of knowing those things at this point. But what I do know is that Gottardi was not aggressive enough at times, and that just shouldn't be the case for someone who is as talented as she is. And that's what we're talking about here with the decision making. Generally, it was fine. But there were times it felt like instead of dropping off a touch shot, she really should have blasted it, and that would have resulted in a better effect. And I don't know how much of that comes from playing with Menegatti, where she's seen Menegatti pull off these really good touch shots that can be brutally effective at times. But maybe Gottardi needs to pull back on that a little bit. So for Valentina Gottardi, she's a tremendous player, high marks across the board. Really, really love her game. She was already this year, this Olympics, she was already good enough to have been on a medal team. Menegatti, unfortunately, was just not there to that level. Other teams took advantage, and then against a team, the U.S. team, who was good enough to medal and didn't, you could see that they were able to take advantage of that enough to get the Italian ladies out. So I'll close with this. What kind of partner should she be looking for the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles? It doesn't have to be right away. You know, it's not urgent that this happen right away, but it does need to happen to where her and her new partner have a couple of seasons to play together and work out the kinks and work out the communication. So whoever it is, well, it doesn't have to be right now. It does have to be within the next, probably 18 months or so, get it done so that you have those couple of seasons in front of you before you get to the 2028 Olympics. I would really love to see her end up with another tall player, somebody who can't control the net. If she can do that, and again, she's very good at the net. She is not weak at the net. She's very good at the net. But if she can end up with another tall player who can basically control net, what that allows is for her to be able to use that athleticism, assuming she keeps it, and there's no reason she can't at the age of 25 just be insanely athletic, just like she is at 21. We saw ladies older than her being incredibly athletic too. I would really love to see her end up with another tall player, even if that player isn't as athletic as, say, Menegatti, all right, as far as getting around the court coverage, or as athletic as Menegatti used to be. If that other player, that Italian that she hooks up with at the Olympics, if that other player can be another tall player or just a really good jumper, one or the other, then you could see this team get really serious about not just medaling, but maybe even going for silver or gold. All right, that's where you could see this team end up. Gottardi has the athleticism. She has the jumping ability. She has the work at the net. She has the power and the force. Those are the things you have to have. She's got all that. And she's got it at the age of 21. And so for the next Olympics, she just needs somebody. And I would rather see her, but again, if that person's not available, or if there's somebody who's tall enough to be good at the net, but not athletic enough, maybe their athleticism is so low that even that would be a detriment to the team, then it's fine for her to look for another player who's just really athletic and pretty good at the net. That would work as well. All things considered, though, I would rather see her find a player who maybe lacks a little bit of that athleticism. Maybe they're an 85 or an 87 out of 100 in terms of athleticism, but maybe they're 6'1", 6'2", with long arms, and they can truly control the net to some degree. They don't have to be the best in the world, but top 5, top 8 out of all these net minders that we're seeing here. If she can hook up with somebody like that, then that could really put them in position for maybe silver, maybe even gold, depending on what the Brazilians are doing in 2028. All right. I think that's it for the night. Thank you all so much for listening. I appreciate it. This has been my first ever Olympic video that I've done here. So really appreciate y'all listening. We'll see y'all next time. Have a great one. This is Sports and Money. I'm Ben Parker. Goodbye.